Hello, welcome to Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Boddie. That's me. This is a podcast that celebrates artists and advocates for community engagement. And this is We Can't Go Back, a video series in partnership with Creative Generation, learning from creatives, activating anti-racist practices in the arts. Please subscribe to Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Boddie YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. In my own journey in this field of arts and arts education, I've always thought of myself as listening and then acting. And the active part has been working to support practices in the arts. And in the last few months, it's been even more important to examine, interrogate, and deeply listening. And so I would like to welcome our guests from Creative Generation, Jeff Poulin and André Solomon. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Courtney.
Hi, André.
Hey, Courtney. Thanks for having me.
Thank you both so much for working with me and for joining me on this introduction to our new video series and our venture together. So, Jeff, can you help us understand what is Creative Generation and what is your role?
Absolutely. Creative Generation started just over a year ago as a public benefit corporation that works to inspire, connect, and amplify the work of young creatives who catalyze social transformation and those who are committed to cultivating their capabilities. Which means we work with young people who are doing amazing creative things all over the world to help their communities. And we work with the artists, educators, and community leaders who support them in those efforts. Our overall goal is to develop thriving communities and a more just world. So we're absolutely thrilled to be joining you in this endeavor to realize some of our own aspirations, which we've articulated in our principles around pursuing justice, fostering intergenerational collaborations, empowering youth voice and action, and honoring diversity and enabling radical inclusion. And this project brings all of those things together. And it's really great to be working with you again.
I'm extremely honored to be able to work with you again on this new venture together. So thanks so much for helping us better understand what Creative Generation is aiming to do. So André, you and I have just met and we're working very closely together. And I understand that you're an artist and also an arts administrator. So what is your role in this project?
Being a minority in the arts world, both as an artist and an arts manager, I really want to provide opportunities for people of color to visualize representation, therefore ownership to actualize their dreams. So hopefully by seeing me, other people of color can see themselves being in this role as well. Within Creative Generation, I'm leading outreach efforts and field-based research to leverage knowledge from communities. However, for this project, I'll be acting as project manager, dabbling in various tasks from designing to communications to aid in success.
I just want to say, as we're embarking on this venture together, that I've been able to take many webinars and be a part of a lot of different kinds of conversations. And I did say earlier that I'm listening, but I also want to make sure that I'm not assuming any sort of role of expert. The role of a host always is to listen. Right, Jeff?
Absolutely, Courtney. And we're listening too. We're really lucky at Creative Generation to have a big platform, much like you with your podcast. And we both used our platforms together throughout the spring with the Keep Making Art campaign and the video series that was associated with that, where we listened to artists and community engagement folks who were using arts and culture to help their communities grapple with the ever-changing circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic. And now we've seen those circumstances involve all sorts of implications as communities work to dismantle systems of white supremacy and oppression in the education world, in the arts world, and everywhere in between. And you know, Courtney, working together, we uncovered a lot of really cool things. And in the last series, you concluded it by speaking about the urgency of the work that underpins this exact series. So Can you tell us a little bit about your observations for the urgency for artists, educators, teaching artists, and cultural organizations in this time?
I feel as though when I launched the Teaching Artistry podcast, I knew that I wanted to make sure that those who are doing the work on the ground needed to be celebrated. And I could see it with my own eyes as somebody who oversees or works with teaching artists and actually could not do the work that I do at the levels that I get to do it at without the amazing artists that I work with. But as we know, teaching artists, they're the most marginalized within the arts community, I would say, maybe because their experiences are of a hybrid of sorts between the arts and teaching or educating. I want to uplift them. And so many of the conversations that I would have through that platform, and then more specifically and more recently with the Keep Making Art video series, that we were so clearly able to identify the inequities that are ever present. I heard at a conference somebody talk about the pandemic that we were experiencing in terms of racial injustice. That kept hitting time and time again. And because the focus was so much on art making and encouraging or advocating to make art, that we would highlight that, but it wasn't about delving so much deeper than maybe we should have been doing. And so I think that this particular focus of unearthing so much that was always there, and we had found ways to sort of pack down or pack away or skim over with the protests, with the demands that we're seeing coming out, with the truth telling, the stories, the pain. We're not wanting to re-traumatize ourselves, but we need to put the spotlight firmly where it belongs. And in terms of, that's across the nation. And then in terms of the arts, it's that same need, because until we start really examining, and when I say examine, I really mean interrogate and instigate, and then ultimately create real lasting action that will impact real lasting change that is so desperately needed in the arts and beyond, that I always wanted to go there, but I don't know if I felt comfortable enough to really go there, because I felt like, ooh, you might be pushing too far. And in my last episode of We Keep Making Art, I basically said, no, I've been trying to make change for a long time by highlighting, and doing, little knitting or incremental changes where I felt like I had the power to do so. And what I've seen is many, many artists feeling very, very empowered to speak up, speak out, show up and show out. And I want to be a part of that. And I want to be a part of the change that we know we need.
It's a great intention that you have, and I hope it does show forth within this series. I have another question. So what types of topics do you hope to explore during this series?
We've got some really exciting guests. The topics I hope to explore is really looking at some liberating practices that the artists or the creatives are practicing already, big questions that they have for themselves, obstacles, maybe even an opportunity to germinate some good ideas for how to handle or move through any particular challenges. And I hope that it sparks a conversation, but the kind of conversation that digs. I'm also interested in exploring revolutionary love as well as abolition teaching. And the big thing that I feel like I keep coming back to, and I've heard multiple times, is earlier I said, I'm not interested necessarily in the re-traumatization of people of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, of their experiences, but that we can find ways to process, as well as looking at ways that we can tell stories that are about that diaspora, the African diaspora, the Indigenous diaspora, as a way of decentering whiteness in our work, and really centering those experiences, those stories, figures, and practices around how do we get young people or folks in different communities that we work with as creatives, as artists, to really feel uplifted as we are moving forward in our existence. Did I answer your question?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And Courtney, those are all really wonderful things. And we at Creative Generation, Andre and I will be working together to document all of the big learnings that are shared through this, to bring them out into the field, to put a spotlight on those promising practices, whether it be radical love, abolitionist teaching, or anything that comes up naturally from the work that people are doing today. We're really excited about putting our brains together to share those resources out into the field so that lots of people can learn from them and they don't just operate in one specific scenario in one specific community.
Absolutely. I think that that's another thing about what I hope people get is that we're going to be talking to artists of all different art disciplines. And so work that can be, focused in or rooted in dance, rooted in theater or storytelling or music, that there's a way to learn from all of those avenues or pathways, as well as the specific practices of engaging art making. The other thing that we'll be talking a little bit about, and I hope that will inform viewers and the listeners, is about how to dissolve or dismantle white supremacist constructs within institutions, and our approaches to institutions that we are not necessarily in charge of in terms of school communities or school districts or other kinds of stakeholders that have these constructs inherently embedded, and hopefully are working through in their own way to make some change. Yeah, my question to you both, as I said earlier, I'm so thrilled to be able to work with you on this, and our approaches are comprehensive. What are you hoping will come out of this series as we go along?
So what we know right now about a lot of the practices that we've been describing is that they're rooted in really deep histories in community engagement, coming up through scholarship in critical race theory or critical pedagogy and much more. And the reality is that those pedagogies and those strategies have been in place to deal with the scenarios of the time. Some emerged in the 1960s as part of the civil rights movement, but we're arguably in another similar movement. And the pedagogies and the strategies that we're talking about today will be responsive to this movement. So we're particularly committed to capturing those learnings, as painful as they may be in this time, to be able to fuel the future development of our classrooms, our community centers, our cultural institutions, and much more. And that's what we hope to learn, is to leverage this crazy time that we're in to help propel us into the future.
Andre?
Throughout history, centuries, people have been using the arts as a form of social justice, and kind of getting their ideas out. And so with everything going on currently, we can't go back. We have to have these voices strong. And sometimes we hear certain leaders, but with the series, it seems like it's going to be a really good bunch of people from all different disciplines. And the audience will really enjoy hearing from people in their community, because in the end, everyone here, including us, are just people. And we all want better education, social justice, and just life. So I'm really hoping that the audience gets a real, true intention of authenticity with everything that is shared.
Me too. Me too. Well said. Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to having these conversations. Guests are people that I know directly. Some of them are people that I haven't had a lot of experience with. So I'm really excited about the breadth of kinds of dynamic conversations that we're going to have, and the a tremendous amount of learning I believe I'm going to get along with the audience. So I want to thank you both for spending some time with us, with me, and I want to thank you all for watching Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Boddie. These conversations and more will be also on our YouTube channel, but on the audio podcast. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as Andre said, we won't go back. We can't go back. Onwards.
Now is my time to shine. Let's When your time comes, don't postpone it. When others doubt and out, you don't condone it. Truth be told, yourself is your toughest opponent. When your moment comes, grab hold and own it. Never let go, stand tall and hold tight. Overcoming obstacles is the objective in life. Doubters all the night, and onto them you shine bright. Cause inside your head, on goes the light. Ignite.